Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Death Session 49. Hopefully a return to form. I don't know what to say about the last episode other than to say I got through it. Both the episode that week, those days, the things that were on me emotionally, and I don't know where it stands with that. I do know that it was very helpful for me to see some of it as a diagnostic and or litmus test or some kind of effort to glean what it might be like to witness that. Not out of pity of myself, but out of pity for or sympathy for people in my life who have to sometimes see me in those conditions, and to be very careful that I am not saying any of it is just people losing their shit a little bit, people who are impatient, witnessing road rage. I'm not trying to make it sound like I have afflictions or serious issues other than what I deem serious and what I deem important to me. And when I go off kilter, it may be an impossible goal set or maybe an impossible standard, and then frustration ensues. There's a million ways to look at it. I don't want to make any of this stuff seem flattering in terms of, a lot of times I've said it before that people say they're perfectionists when they really mean they're just neurotic. And perfectionist and or control freak just means neurotic. And I think that is the case for most of us, all of us. Those who aren't, I'd love to meet one, because even your as Tony Soprano often refers to Gary Cooper, the strong silent type, even that dude has neuroses. He just is really better at masking them, and he had really impeccable bone structure. So where I'm at this week vis-a-vis the show, I'm not a lot further along because maybe some of you know or don't know, I haven't hung it and I haven't done anything with it, but just as a thing to have and maybe align with my girlfriend, I during the pandemic I got a real estate license, and in one of those efforts, and now it's it's time to redo it, and I have to sit for 45 hours, and sometimes you get through things quick and you complete the test, but if you don't do the actual hours logged on the timer, you can't do it in half time. So 45 hours is considerable, and it is taking up because I hate it so much, or I just hate the notion of that lingering over me. We're not due until October, but I just can't have that stuff pile up on me as on my to-do list, and I'd rather, there's two types of people, I guess: the people who wade into the ocean, freaking out about how cold it is and trying to acclimate, and then there's the dudes who dive in as soon as the water is deep enough to not cause spinal injury. I'm kind of in between, but eventually I kind of dunk under, and in this case I am someone who's going to dive in. And so as far as the show, I had a nice meeting with a friend who is also a client of my acting coaching. That is something I also don't talk about, but maybe I should start. And he had some swag from a production to share with me, which was mighty kind and awesome, because on top of paying me for my services, he's now looking out for me with swag. And he does not know how much of a merch whore I am. When I bartended, I ask all the reps for merch. I am a merch whore. And so he really nailed it there. And through the catching up period of what are you up to, I talked about the show, and he needed to catch up with me about whether there was progress after the reading, and I told him that all the good things about the reading. And then of course I had some personal travails that have slowed my progress vis-a-vis next steps. So him talking, and he gave me a phone number of someone with a theater, et cetera, et cetera. So that's some progress report on the return of Otis Redding. And I guess because I am seeing in social media, which is one cool thing, is that now is when Edinburgh Fringe Festival is happening. And so I make a joke that sometimes I've auditioned for things and I think I'm still in it till I see it. And then you make the joke of when you see it, you're like, yeah, well, I still might be up for it. Like they may reconsider. So you can have a delusion, but I can't do it this year because it's happening as we speak in August. But this does sort of set a timer for a goal of a year from now, from this very moment, that I could try to see if press my luck and see if I can manage to, between now and then have a production that shows some provenance. I think that's the word I'm looking for, because a lot of what I'm encountering in the application processes, whichever one is less pretentious, in these application hoops to jump through, they want to either have proof that you can pull it off, which would probably be proof of funds and important names attached, or they want to know that it's been produced before and that there is evidence of such. And I think that would probably help your chances at Edinburgh as something coming off a Los Angeles premiere, then going to Edinburgh, or something having a New York premiere, then going to Edinburgh, those kind of steps. And so I guess goal setting is I have to do something else in the near term to get me ready for then a further production here in the States, and or to have a little bit of something ready for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival application, etc. And then of course you would need budgets, and you would need a budget for Edinburgh, and or producers that think it's worth taking across the pond, and all that stuff that I am now sort of flummoxed by, trying not to put the cart before the horse, trying to stay positive, which has proven to be sometimes to call it my Achilles heel. I would say that I'm positive a lot, and then once in a while I go negative. But I think the kind of the opposite is true, and that's been part of what I have been trying to unwire, rewire, and or build new bridges to, is a way through those, what Churchill would say, those periods where I am walking the black dog. And I think you can gather from Churchill a lot of different things. I don't know enough about him other than the biographical films and documentaries. I haven't read a lot about him, but he was a booze hound, and to say a booze hound who drank copious amounts of a liquid depressant might have had bouts of depression wouldn't be a stretch. But I doubt that he would have sat cross-legged and did breath work, or ever referenced the Kama Sutra or something, or the Body God, whatever that fucking, he wasn't necessarily a spiritual dude, but he wrote well and minimally. And so if he wrote well and then had those heavy afflictions and all those world events, we can debate about that. But I gather that a lot of times intellectuals and people who write well don't tend to delve too far into the spiritual. But I went off on a tangent about Winston Churchill because he used the phrase walking the black dog. And last week I was definitely walking the black dog, and may still be. And that's why I reference also the Achilles myth, because I think we always get that. My Achilles heel is blank. And, I would like to be, and I see it a couple of stand-ups that I see. If you're lucky to get good fortune in the industry, you can still, as your brand, be tortured. You can still, as your brand, be a pessimist. And I think that's good for them. They are fortunate, because then they can purely write from this point of, I'm thinking of Mark Maron, who I like as an actor very much. and maybe less so as a comic, but he's a bona fide big deal, and he's a very smart guy. But I feel for his reticence to, and this is a big leap, but I don't know him at all, but I feel for his reticence to heal or to mine the depths. And that was he was definitely an influence on me. I was one of those mine the depths of your psyche comedians. And I was fighting against the natural proclivity to be funny and witty and charming. And also I was afflicted with half-empty thinking, so I wouldn't count my blessings along these travails in stand-up and or the arts. And so I sort of fused a personality of downtrodden, and I guess boxers are a better example than creative artists, because boxers, and Marvin Hagler, one of the greatest, said that it's really hard to get out and do road work and do your fucking running for cardio when you're sleeping in silk pajamas as a champion. And many times you say, I guess that's the Eddie Murphy syndrome of why he doesn't do stand-up anymore. But I haven't gone through those bouts of massive success. And I think maybe, like I said, I've fused too much with the mining the depths narrative. And so occasionally, if you have a baseline, when I am working on trying to get over a baseline and stay over, which is I'm not aiming for 10, but I've heard that people's, happiness rests at 7, 5, 7, 7-ish, 8, and I cannot cop to always feeling that way. And certainly after a funeral and being out of sorts and having some issues, I'm below 6. So, that is whether that's diagnosable. I don't really want to put that out there or think about that or make that any of anybody else's business but mine. But let's just say mood versus anything clinical. But and so that's when you have to really kind of come out of the nosedive and bring the black dog to his rightful owner, or bring the black dog to a kennel, or call your black dog Onyx and enjoy your beautiful puppy and be happy. And I wasn't able to do that in the last week or two. And I don't know. I think maybe if I'm going to flatter myself, it is that being at very least sure of where your emotional thermostat needed to be in holding up your girlfriend and her family in their loss, that is a very definite and strong North Star to point at. I will just be here for them. I will keep my shit together as best I can so that I don't drain the people who need support, and I have to give them love, and I knew what to do. And I've heard, and this is I really wish I knew who said it, but that actors per se, not just because writers have to write it all, and I do that too, but actors find relief from their anxiety and pain and sorrow, but mostly anxiety. That acting is the salve for anxiety, because for the fact of the script, which is less about character, but it's a blueprint for the action of the plot, and the characters are the players who enact the plot and who are pawns to the plot or devices to the plot, and the requisite and or byproduct of the emotions that the characters may present. If you want to debate about whether your emotional content is really part of the story or not, but the fact that you don't have to think about it. Even if they're sad emotions, the actor, the anxiety-ridden person, the sad person, that character could be exultant in his speech to his followers. When Prince Harry, does the St. Crispin's Day speech, that actor is not, he gets to be inspirational. And then later in the play, he gets to be triumphant. And then even though a character may be exhibiting fear and dread, like a Macbeth or a Scottish play, knock on wood, turn around 3 times, if you know what the emotions are, then the actor is actually relieved to be playing things that are other than what his kind of woe might be. And so that there is an escapism from your baseline issues when you are acting or working on scripts. Even if the emotions are dark, they aren't yours per se, although you are the instrument playing them. And I find that you can detach and just sort of revel in playing them, because otherwise every bad guy you play, or every actor who plays a bad guy, would be a bad guy in life, and we know that's not true. But they can step into those emotions and out. There is a lot of conjecture about these methody types, which is a misnomer and a misinterpretation, and there is no quote-unquote method, which is another boring digression. But taking it home, yeah, maybe to a degree if you are the lead and you had to do a rough scene, or if you did something like Jodie Foster had to go through in her Oscar turn, all of that, yeah, that's going to have some sting when you go back to the hotel bar if you're on location. But I think that for me, and what I've always envied about other art forms, i.e. painting, i.e. sculpting, i.e. virtuoso music, was that I felt envious of the fact that they could bliss out into their thing, and that I had to bring so quote unquote much of myself to acting that it wasn't. But now I understand that if you're doing them at artistic levels, not necessarily at the level of commerce where you have to do them sometimes, but if you're doing intense scene work or working on dialect or preparing an audition, it's like you have those tools that you have, which are i.e. paints for a painter, i.e. Instrument for a player, but the actor does have to be present to do it. But if you're looking for an abatement of your present day woe, what could be better than to have Hamlet's woe, which is not your own? And so it can be that release. And now I understand that. I don't know if I just had a breakthrough in front of you, or if I've always known that, or if that's helpful to anyone out there. But dare I say that really having to focus on software for real estate exam taking, and this is another curious discovery of mine, is completing the exams. I have to take these exams to keep my license, and these exams get certificates, and they have man hours you got to do, and then you have to type in your license, and then it will go to the DRE, the Department of Real Estate, and they will certify that you have passed these mandated courses to maintain your license. But you get 2 cracks at it, and you don't want to have to go over that shit twice, because you could turn 45 hours into 90 hours and then we're fucked. And so you want to kind of get these things. And then the combination of relief of passing and accomplishment and knocking these things off, it's been a mood elevator. And so I guess that is something to understand, that putting goals out there, accomplishing tasks, is also an abatement of anxiety, dread, woe, existential dread, and just borderline walking the black dog depression. And so while I clamor for peace, which you would think is sometimes peace is like just leave me alone, dark room by myself, listening to the Nebraska album, that is loneliness cloaked in some posing. But sometimes peace comes from exerting yourself and then having earned your time off. And that is another thing. So doing something you hate, like bartending, say, you grind it out and you barter your life units for money, which is unfortunately what we have to do for jobs. So you trade temporal happiness for necessity. But one good thing, I guess, about a job like that is you don't take it home. And you, although I have to pass some fucking ABC test for that too, So you do wind up taking it home, and then if you're at a level where I'm at, where there is expensive drinks and fine wine and there are menu updates, so it does wind up being a job you have to take home. And then what was the fucking point of that? When in New York, it was, sex on a beach, vodka tonics, and what kind of wine do you have was red and white, not a fucking Rhone Valley, fucking, that kind of shit. So it was give me my money, here's your fucking drink, and let me get out of here. Now it's that, plus you have this database of knowledge, which in and of itself is, I guess, not bad, because why would I be stoked to learn real estate and not stoked to learn fine wine and diming? I guess I've just had my fill. But what it was that you didn't go home with the work. And what you find out about artists, actors, writers, entrepreneurs, I guess, if you want to lump them in, is that they want to take their work home. They want their work to be more present in their lives. And so the idea of leisure is for the lucky few who get to do their passion and get paid for it. And what happens when you have survival jobs that take a lot out of you, that can cripple you or beat you up physically or mentally, is then that avocation, the thing that you are bartering your life units to pay bills, to stay present for, all of a sudden you don't have the energy for, because all you want to do is, get that proverbial downtime from that miserable fucking job. And so as I contemplate what I'm doing in a pivot, and if I'll go back to work, or if I can get more entrepreneurial about maybe expanding my acting, coaching, and doing something along those lines without the safety net of a job, would that be, again, grass is always greener, or, just a different thing? And, money being what it is in my life, is there is a short porch, and any excesses I have may have to come up in terms of putting something toward a production budget. And or something as minimal. The other thing I think about is if you have to take somebody out to lunch to quote unquote get some information or pick their brain, which is kind of annoying for people, and so you have to do that sparingly. But if you covering that meal is a hardship, that can fuck up your networking potential and or your progress. So I don't know if the line is evident in the book, but it is in the movie. And the book was fantastic. The Tender Bar by J.R. Mooringer. The Tender Bar was a great book. My buddy back from high school, my buddy Billy, he read it twice through. It was a great book about kind of learning how to be a man in a bar culture in Long Island. And he was a fatherless, or had an absentee father. So that wasn't my narrative. But I related to the camaraderie of learning how to be a man in that old school, leave your money on the fucking bar, don't talk politics at a bar. But the character of the older, wiser bartender, played by Ben Affleck, but I guess would be the narrator in the book, or an actual bartender character that wound up becoming, the lead. I guess the lead is the young guy coming of age. But he says something, you need a job and you need a car, that's what you need. And I get what he's saying, and if you want to be, because, everybody wants this lump sum that they can go fuck off on. It's not really about that, because there's no such thing as a big enough lump sum, I suppose, for the normal dude. I would imagine a couple $100 million could do it, but, the idea of that your income is your generator, I get that, and that is pretty good advice. So as I think about how giving that up and then dedicating to the startup notions without the fuel of the income, that could beset me with some other problems. So it's a lot to think about, and I think it got on top of me last week. Because of a few circumstances and a few other things, and I wasn't able to really stay on top. And I guess the only saving grace was keeping my appointment with myself, whether it was on my preferred day or not. And I made my deadline. I kept my promise. All those things that. But it was not your best effort, and so in the through line of if 49 of them or 48 of them are good, or showing promise in the beginning and eventually getting to be of value, what's to say one kind of being fucked up is a pretty good rate of exchange? But I think none of them are wasted if the effort and the point of origin and the approach to the dive off the diving board is honest and sincere. Then even if they quote unquote aren't up to snuff because the content or words didn't come or themes didn't pop up, I guess you couldn't call any of those bad ones. Where last week was a foul up, a mood. It was me not being at my best and knowing it. And so I think it's an exercise. And again, with the notion that this is done for my edification, not for broadcast. Although I've had that debate, and I think I don't know. That's a good question for myself to think about. And I guess I am torn between two lovers, feeling like a fool sometimes with this YouTube thing, because I am doing more of a podcast without a guest, but I'm doing it on YouTube with a camera. So it's not for audio purposes, but who would sit and watch someone talk? But people do. Thank you very much. And so it's a vlog, I guess, would be the category. But as I have tried to do some research into what makes YouTube more sticky in the algorithm is edited vlogs, scripts that are adhered to. And then, I'd have fucking little bloop, like I'd have a graph, I'd have a picture of Winston Churchill, I'd have a bloop, I'd have a black dog, and that shit that would keep the production and the static image moving to keep your attention. Those production elements would make it more successful, or at very least more in the vocabulary of YouTube. And that's always been my thing, is that they I don't like per se the vocabulary of YouTube. The guys who have these massive followings that I watch, and they all have the same kind of clickbaity thing, like 10 things to know before you post, the magic answer for fucking blank, this is how you get to where I am blank, all of that. And then as soon as I watch it, I am trying to get through the thing and trying to get the data points. And so if they're not engaging me with the ramble or with the sincerity or the vibe, then I can't even wait I can't even hang in there for the data. And so I say this to say, I know you can't break the rules unless you master the rules. A lot of people didn't know about Picasso, is that all that abstract stuff and all those fucking women with their breasts on the floor and a nose going up in the air, and that cubism and all that stuff, that was a departure from what he could do, which was he was a fine draftsman, fine arts draftsman, and you can see his sketches and stuff. And so similarly, your Miles Davis, he can play fucking and he can play scales out the ass, and then he can break the rules. And I don't know what that forms are for performing artists and for this new field of influencer. What winds up happening is if you look for those things that are similar so that you get traction, it is a road to sameness. And I don't want to be the same, but I wouldn't mind getting platformed at a bigger at a bigger notice, But again, if this is byproduct to getting the show on board and getting it on the way, and I guess the whole point of being here is to, enter my mind and to fix some erroneous thoughts or limiting beliefs for myself that maybe then in the process of working all this stuff out might be interesting to a fellow thinker. I guess that is really what the pitch is. And maybe that's not mass appeal. So understanding that, from everything I've gleaned, that there's a different vibe on Instagram as there is on TikTok, and there's a different vibe on Twitter for sure than there is on Facebook, and know your formats and all that stuff. And I don't want to I have discipline, so that's why I don't want to be riffing and flailing and doing it quote unquote my way, because I want people to pick up on that and be ignorant to the formats or a few of the little tweaks that do make it approachable, let's say, which I think I've manifested in that I have a decent light. I got a mic. The times I was on the road and didn't bring my mic, I used the ear pods, and so sound suffered, and the lighting suffered, and the angle was bad, and so you can't say that I'm just freeballing here, but there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to take in, and so I guess what they do say about emotions or depressions or is that they're just energy, right? So what is the energy of fuck? Like, what is that? And is it a darkening of mood? So then that may be a color thing or a light and dark thing, and sometimes it can get on top of you. And I think it had a lot to do, honestly, with not being able to do this when I wanted to do it on my usual day, with the parameters being controllable and all that stuff, and the idea that selfishly I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and impositions on that do make me resentful, and then I feel out of control, and then that spirals, and then to be out of control and to not be, and to resent that you're doing something you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. That's a double-edged sword, because we don't really control things. So there I go again, back to the beginning, which is my the notion of not being neurotic, and to trying to dispel neuroses. And while I was in the shower, which is what I do right before I get on here, is I think about a theme. And so and I know it's going to be a rough way to end and a rough way to talk about it, but I think when things are done with love, they resonate. And I think love, as a peacenik term, is a turnoff for a lot of types, and I don't really care, because I'm into the love notion. But what I mean is that if you write a personal piece, like a one-man show, if it's done with love, like that means, you put everything you can into it. Of course, that's going to resonate to some with the fact that you put some love into it, or a speech at a funeral is going to have some love. But people who love to cook, right? That's Anthony Bourdain's, one of his books, he mentions, don't go to a fucking restaurant with less than a half an hour before they close, because what are the chances of you slamming that fucking kitchen with the last ticket of the night that could have been avoided is going to be made with love. And everybody can say in that dickish thing, well, if they're posted, of course, you're right, they're going to make it. But I'm just saying, it's not going to be made with love. And one of the things that I won't share until I'm able to share, but in working with my acting client, and it's military kind of stuff, and when I was riffing on stuff, and in between his takes or whatever, when we were working together, I mentioned a show I really loved, Lioness, a Taylor Sheridan show, which I'm a fan, even if that puts me in dad television category. But in Lioness, the lead of that is Zoe Saldana, and what I mean about when things are done with love, much is accomplishable. If you take politics out of what those special forces do, what those operators do, is they back each other up with lethal force, and they extract one another and use lethal force on the enemy. And so, of course, the pacifist in me says that it's all bad. And this, I think, goes back to a Sebastian Junger book about war, is that once you take all the fucking politics out of it, and once these poor decisions that can be debated over Thanksgiving meals and ruined dinners, once you get past that and you have the poor fuckers in the shit, they're not doing it for this notion of thank you for your service. They're doing it for the dude sitting fucking next to them. And that is love. And so while it is brutal and horrible to have to fucking double tap some enemy combatant to save your buddy, you are doing that with love. And so to use the word love in is not hippy dippy if you're worried about that. And then so that kind of riff similar to that really engaged my acting client. He's like, that's dope. And so that if you have to find a way in to do unspeakable shit as a character in a scene, or if you have to find a way to get through a tough night at a job you don't want to be at, or if you have a real deep desire to finish your one-man show and you think that the core value of it is that you're going to bring some love to the universe, or love on stage, or you're going to put love into the craft of it, or you're going to try to be, which I wasn't much last week, but if you're going to be lovingly putting it forward in the desk session. And if you thought about the desk session, which kind of has desk and sesh, I don't even think that's alliteration, but that it sounds cool. And the premise, all of that stuff comes from this wellspring of love, and it's not a fucking joke, and it's not insipid. It's just you have to find out how to apply quote unquote love to situations. And if you can find a way to apply love to warfare, which is really just comrades in arms, which is a different kind of love, and some would say the most meaningful, because if you're that dude who got his leg shot and you can't walk, and they're coming for you, and they're going to throw you in a fireman's carry to take you back home, if that feeling of love doesn't fill you up, then you're not going to make it, because you're already gone. And so I guess when you get away from that, and maybe when you don't do the self-love, or I don't know how to use that shower discovery other than to help an actor with the seemingly brutal scenarios, but how do you fix it, or how do you infuse love with it? I don't know how to make those tough days go away with love, but I guess that's where I'm lacking. So I have to find out ways to put myself in positions to remind myself that if you things that are done with love tend to resonate, and that doesn't mean love doesn't always have to be held hands. It can be a punch in the face. It can be a door kicked in. It can be, a chopper coming over the hill, or it can be a beautiful fucking song. It could be "Bring Him Home" from Les Mis, when Jean Valjean says, "Bring him home." Stealing the bread is an act of love, because he's saying to the guy at the end, my only crime was stealing bread, and you've been hunting me all these years. And then out of love, he lets the dude go when he had a chance to fuck him up. And that, anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, love, you could call it God, whatever. If you put that life source, or that ingot of hope, desire, dreams, goodness, you put that in the mix, maybe, then I think it's hard to defeat. And so, bouncing back from a tough week, walking the black dog, and coming back home, hopefully this week, and passing a couple of silly tests on real estate. I got through the finance one, which is the hard one for me. I guess it was a little blip on my radar of feeling like hope was lost, and now hope is back. Love has returned. And so with that, I think that's a good way to end, because what am I going to improve on there? And this is 49, and we're closing in on this being a full year in the can. And of that, I will have to say I'd be proud of. So I still got a ways to go. And remember the ill winds in the Odysseus myth, or that mile 24, 25 before the end of the 26 miles, they're the tough miles. They also say that the 9, 10, 8, 9, 10 rounds, they call those the championship rounds, or the 10, 11, 12 or the championship rounds. Back in the day, Ali's day, Marvin Hagler's day, it was 13, 14, 15 were the championship rounds. And in my life, where I'm at on the spectrum of all that I've travailed, I'm in the championship rounds, and they're tougher. They're tougher than the first couple where you're just throwing jabs. They're tougher than the horns going and people honking at you, and then you're somewhere on fucking Queens Boulevard running around in the marathon, and you're coming back into the city for your final few miles, and you want to puke. So I'm at that point. I feel like that I'm at the end of an accomplishing goal, and it's getting difficult, and I'm being tested, which is really my own tolerance is being tested. And so I gotta hang in there, and I hope you will too. So this was Carl D. Gregorio on DeGregorio Session 49. Peace.